One that I don't know if is bad or good, but I'm just a little bit confused by was the Patriots using their second first-round pick on running back Sony Michel from Georgia. I think Sony Michel is a very good player. I just wonder if the Patriots have enough, if they're going to use him the correct way. Look, the Patriots are known for having 3 or 4 running backs who share duties, and they really have not had guys who are going to be the workhorse back for them. So I looked at the touches leader last year for running backs, and obviously Le'Veon Bell. He led the 2017 running backs with touches with 406. And to the bottom of the top 10 with Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram had 288 touches last year, so that's number 10 in the entire NFL. So if you took that 288 spots being a top 10 spot in the NFL in touches, and you looked at the Patriots in the last 15 years, how many guys have had 288 or more touches? 2 years ago, LeGarrette Blount had 306. That was the year they really rode him a lot. That was the year when Tom Brady was suspended for the first 4 games, so they had to ride their workhorse a lot. So it's 2016. Then you go back 4 more years, 2012, where Stephen Ridley had 296 touches. He, kind of do everything back for them, ran the ball, caught the ball, did everything else. Then you have to go 8 more years back before a guy had more than 288 touches. That was Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon had 360 touches back in 2004. So the Patriots are known for being a team that has 2, 3, 4 running backs who can do different things. Obviously, guys like James White that are able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Mike Gillislee before he got benched, who could be the kind of the pounding type back. Are the Patriots going to use Sony Michel as a guy who can touch the ball 250, 300 plus times a year? Because if they don't, then that's a total waste of a first-round pick. And look, maybe they're saying we can get this guy late. He has, the great potential to be the next workhorse back for us. We haven't had one of those really, be the number one guy since Corey Dillon back in 2004. That's when Corey Dillon was past his prime. Are they going to be looking at Sony Michel to be a leader in the waning days of Tom Brady and maybe the transition to whoever else they get at quarterback once Tom Brady retires? Because Sony Michel, the shelf life for a running back in the NFL is like 8 years, 9 years, 10 years at most. If he can last that long and be their workhorse guy, then that is a good pick. But I just wonder if Bill Belichick has the ability to stick to a single running back and use him to his full potential to be a useful first-round pick.
I will say this as far as the Sony Michel pick. I love the Sony Michel pick because it gives them a great 1-2 punch. They have Jeremy Hill, who they picked up from the Bengals, who's going to be their thumper, their guy, the goal line guy, a LeGarrette Blount kind of player. He didn't flourish when he was with Cincinnati, but I think he could do well on the Patriots in this format. I mean, we've seen what the Patriots can do, bringing in a guy that maybe didn't do as well as he lived up to or as he was pressed to do in his first stop, and then come to the Patriots and really be a playmaker or a dynamic player at his position for them. And you have the thumper in Jeremy Hill, and you bring in Sony Michel, who's the elusive guy, the guy that's going to be shifty and make the moves and be a first down, second down, third down back. I like it. I'm not as low on it as you, but I get where you're coming from when it comes to purely just off of touches. He's not going to be amazing from a fantasy perspective, in my opinion, unless he really takes the reins and says, you have to play me. But we haven't seen that in a Patriots running back in God knows how long.
Well, just really quickly responding, like you said, they're able to pick up guys who weren't able to do much for other teams, and that's exactly why I don't know if this thing is going to work out quite as well, because last year they had 4 running backs they used to differing degrees. Dion Lewis, Mike Gillislee, Rex Burkhead, and James White. James White's kind of the receiving guy. Rex Burkhead kind of had a dual role. Mike Gillislee was kind of the pounder at first, and Dion Lewis was kind of the more prototypical running back who could do both things. If they can pick up guys like that for cheap, why are you spending a first-round pick on a guy unless you're going to play him 300 touches a year? And they have not done that in so long. It's going to be weird for me to see them change their philosophy and not have Tom Brady throw the ball 600 times and really give them a workhorse back, because we have not seen that.
Yeah, it was a very interesting pickup. It's so anti-Patriots move to take a first-round running back in this day and age. But I like the pickup. I really do. And I think that maybe this Bill Belichick is realizing he needs to not make such an emphasis on Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady's Tom Brady, but he is getting up there in age. Maybe he doesn't need to put as much pressure on Tom Brady to make all the throws because now they can have a running game and a 1-2 punch. I think that there's some thought process we're not seeing behind it.
Okay, all right. So who is your you looked back through your notes, your sheets. Who is your guy who you think is going to be the stud of this draft class beyond the quarterbacks and beyond Saquon Barkley?
My biggest steal in the entire draft, the one of the best steals I think I've seen in the last few years, and some people are talking about it, and I think it needs to get more pub because I think this is one of the biggest game changers in the entire draft. He was one of my top 5 players. That's Derwin James to the San Diego Chargers.
Yes, okay.
I absolutely love this kid. He plays a lot like Jalen Ramsey, who was on his team a couple years back. This kid is just a thumper. He's going to hit guys. You heard him talk about on ESPN during the draft how he reminds guys a lot of Washington Redskins. That guy was able to hit guys even when they were going out of bounds. He would make sure the play was – he would go until the pass whistle was blown. That's the type of player Derwin James is. He's so dynamic, so amazingly well gifted at what he does. I can't understand. I mean, I get it, the injury concerns, but I can't for the life of me, on a pure football perspective, understand how this kid got out of the top 10. Like, he, in my opinion, is by far one of the best players in this draft who I think will have a very promising career. I love that pickup, and to get him where they did it, pick number 17 is an absolute steal. I was praying that the Vikings would move up to get him, but I just love that pick. Another couple real quick that I think were really interesting moves, and I think that could bring a lot to these teams. Number 1 was Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama, to the Falcons. Now you have 2 Alabama wide receivers on the Falcons, and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley was the most pro-ready wide receiver in this draft. To put him up next to Julio Jones, arguably the best receiver in the entire NFL, and put him there with a guy who can teach him the ropes. They come from the same college. They've got the same experience, know the same people, and have an excellent quarterback in Matt Ryan. I just think it's a match made in heaven. I think this is going to be a huge pickup. I think this kid, maybe not the first year or second year, but could have huge fantasy numbers going forward. I love this 1-2. I will say this now. I'm placing my mark on this now.
Here we go.
In the next 3 to 4 years, they will be the best 1-2 punch wide receiver in the NFL, best tandem in the NFL.
All right.
Mark my words.
There you go. Take it to the bank.
And lastly, there was one more pick I wanted to say, and of course I'm losing it now. Oh, okay. 2 picks that I thought were very interesting and very stupid. Not that these guys can't perform. It was just very interesting what happened. Rashad Penny to the Seahawks with the number 27 overall pick. What were they thinking? They could have got this guy in the second round, no problem. Even if they thought people were going to move up ahead of him to get him, you could move up in the second round to get him. End of the first round, this kid was like number 5 in my my draft rankings when it comes to running back position. He's not a pass blocker. I just don't get it. Like it just with the Seahawks, the way they've been crumbling this last year, all the guys that they've lost, and they've done so good for so many years in bringing in guys through the draft and rising these young stars. Maybe they see something we don't. I just don't get it. I just don't understand that pick. I thought you could have got him way later. This made no sense to me, and it was one of the shocks of the draft. The number 1 shock, completely bonehead move of the entire draft, was moving up to number 14, the Saints picking Marcus Davenport, and giving up, in the process, a number 1 pick next year for a defensive end from Texas San Antonio. What in the heck is going on there? Like,
Roadrunner.
The thing is, I get it. This kid was going to be a first-round draft pick no matter what. But he comes from a no-name college. I can't really judge him for that. I mean, look at Khalil Mack, who came from Buffalo. Yes, he didn't come from a prominent college, but I just don't understand why you give up a first rounder next year to move up and get a defensive end when you don't need to. Like, you could have easily gotten a guy just as capable in the later rounds where you were drafting. Like, I'm losing my voice because I'm so like.
Yeah, you're really worked up about this. Yeah.
If you're going to move up that much and give up a first round pick, that has to be a quarterback or a skill position player that's going to make a change right away. And at that point in the draft, I thought there's one of two things that's going to happen. They were going to get a quarterback or they were going to get Derwin James, because that I would understand. Derwin James is a top 10 talent that's easily could be a playmaker for them and start right away. But they didn't. And they got Marcus Davenport, and I think he could be a good player. I want to see this kid flourish. It just made no sense, man. It was such a strange pick, and now they don't have a first rounder next year. I mean, I was texting my buddy who's a Saints fan, being like, what in the world is going on? He's like, I have no idea. I give up. Like, this makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Even their fans are very at awe of what happened.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
For a guy in his last 2 years at UTSA, the Roadrunners, his junior year had 6.5 sacks. His senior year had 8.5 sacks. And granted, 17.5 tackles for loss is a good number, but only 8.5 sacks for a guy who doesn't play in a marquee, Power 5 conference. To trade up that much and to get rid of next year's first round pick, this could very well be reminiscent of the Buffalo Bills giving up way too much for Sammy Watkins and having to pay for it years later. Because unless this guy becomes, the next 20 sack guy, you're not going to get the same amount of value that you gave up for him.
Yep, I agree. And to see him do it, it was just a strange pick. But hey, if it works out, then great. They got an edge rusher to put next to Cameron Jordan for the next 10 to 15 years. But I just don't see it, man. Yeah. I just don't see it.
It is a lot to give up, that's for sure. All right, Bobby, we got to take one more break. When we come back, we have like a 5-minute segment on mixed martial arts. We got to talk about it. The fans crave it. The fans want it, Bobby. Alex Klepper, Bobby Goodsby, Klepp and the Goods. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Klepp and the Goods
on Player Radio.
Hi there, Alex Klepper from Klepp and the Goods here. Seeing as how Bob and myself are just getting this whole thing started again, we thought we'd reach a hand out to you across the interwebs, unfurl that hand slowly yet assuredly, and slowly caw into your ear. Got any change, bruh? Now see, Bobby and myself are both hardworking men, but this is still a hobby. And maybe one day we'd like it to be a little bit more? Well, that's where you come in, my friend. If you or your business is looking to get your name out there to the millions of Kleppiacs and Goodsians out there, now is your chance. Shoot me an email at abklepper@gmail.com or reach out to me on Twitter and let's talk business. Cool? Cool.
Next time on Poppy Street.
Now, back to Klepp and the Goods
on Spreaker Radio. All right, Bob. One last segment on that good fight sport you and I both love dearly, mixed martial arts. Last weekend, there was no UFC event, but there was a MMA event, Bellator MMA. Fedor Emelianenko versus Frank Mir, a fight that we were all clamoring for maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Finally happens in the Allstate Arena in Illinois. Fedor knocking out Frank Mir in 48 seconds to move on in the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix, which now has one more fight to go, which is going to be coming up not this weekend, but next weekend at the SAP Center in San Jose. King Mo versus Ryan Bader, two guys who are neither heavyweights. Both of them are light heavyweights, but hey, the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix seems to be doing well for them ratings-wise. Chael Sonnen beating Rampage Jackson, Fedor beating Frank Mir, and Matt Mitrione beating Big Country Nelson. So those are the top three right now that have made it to the semis. Ryan Bader, King Mo will be fighting in a week and a half to find out who fights Matt Mitrione. Have you been paying attention at all to the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix, Bobby?